Hi everyone. Um, oh Christ, that's still hard. Sorry, I'm drinking something. In case you couldn't tell, this is unscripted, so I'm gonna try my best to be as concise and not waste your time as much as possible. I alluded to in the description of the JRPG video, which first of all, thank you everyone who posted nice comments and watched the video and whatnot. I'm very, very grateful for you all. Second off, as I was saying earlier, I alluded to in the comments of that, or the description of that video, that I would make a video called Tectonic's Real Thoughts on Final Fantasy XII. I feel like I owe Final Fantasy XII fans that much, because out of all the games in the video, 12 is the only one that got the short end of the stick, unless you're Lord of the Rings. In that case, you never made it into the video in the first place. So before I go into what I thought of the game proper, I want to say that that I don't hate it. I don't hate Final Fantasy XII. The idea to make it to make that specific section of the video a parody of Spoonie actually came from a few months ago when I kind of started binge watching Spoonie reviews again, as I'm to do every once in a while. And it just made me kind of miss his reviews. And fun fact, this is actually being recorded the day after, as of 36 minutes ago, Spoonie Noah Antwiler's 40th birthday. So happy belated birthday, Noah. I hope you can find some way to pick yourself up from whatever you're dealing with. So I was watching a lot of Spoonie back then, and I had already played this. Was a few months ago now, maybe back in September or so, maybe August. I had played Final Fantasy XII about 6 months ago at that point, and by the time I was watching the Spoonie stuff, I knew I was going to make the JRPG video. But I was unsure of how I was going to approach it at the time. I didn't know if it was going to be straight up impressions, or maybe like each like smaller little like video essays with greater points. You can actually kind of see some of that latter approach in some of the video, or some of the sections, but mostly I stuck to just impressions. So yeah, I wasn't really sure how I wanted to approach it at the time, and as of that point, and I guess all the way up until the video finally began production, Final Fantasy XII was the only game I was fairly negative on. All of the other RPGs I had played, I had plenty of wonderful things to say about. So it would have felt I was apprehensive of doing a straight up impressions, because it would have felt a little off, like out of left field, if only one of the straight-faced impressions in the JRPG video was fairly negative, and the rest were all mostly positive. So I figured, why not do something special with it? And after watching some of Spoonie's Final Fantasy content, his Ultima content, I thought it would be really funny. I thought it would be hilarious if I managed to do a Spoonie parody. I got gassed up a little bit by Nate. If you're watching this, Nate, hi. Thank you for helping me out with the video. I got gassed up a bit because I was told my Spoonie impression was decent. So I was like, you know what, maybe I can actually do this. I'm not as shy behind the camera or in front of the camera as I used to be. I'm not adverse to showing my face on the channel. I don't think if it's going to be a negative impression, I might as well make it stand out as much as possible. Stuff like the Spoonie or the tectonic experiment part really kind of makes me wonder if perhaps I should have been a little more experimental with the JRPG video, but I digress. So yeah, that's how I came up with the idea. I just thought it was really funny, and I thought I could do it. As for what I wrote in the Spoonie section, it's coming from the perspective of what I think Spoonie would have said about the each sections of the game. Obviously, I can't read his mind. I don't know exactly what he would think, but there are some things that I can infer, and I tried my best to integrate those into the script as possible. I tried to make sure that there were some like classic Spoonie gags in there to really hammer the point home that what I'm doing is a Spoonie parody, in case it wasn't obvious already. But like stuff like Spoonie would definitely hate Vaughn. Spoonie would definitely hate the combat system of 12. More on that later. He would nitpick about pointless things that don't matter, like trying to hunt a tomato in a desert area, or what else did I write? Or like the palace guards puzzle to get into the treasure room. Stuff like that. It also, to kind of go back to doing a Spoonie thing, it also would be fairly easy to edit, because the way Spoonie formatted his reviews, it was one of those chronological, like, talk about the story, riff on it, and then use points, intersplice points or critiques about gameplay, music, or whatever as you're discussing the story. One of those kinds of reviewers. To make it a shortish part 1 video, I would only need to record about the first couple of hours, maybe 2. I think I ended up having to record 2 hours of Final Fantasy XII, because I didn't, as I said in the beginning of the JRPG video, or maybe even, or perhaps just sort of alluded to, but a lot of the footage I got for the JRPG video was not captured on my first playthrough, except for Final Fantasy VII and Persona 5. Persona 5, I knew at that point I was doing the JRPG video, so I took the time to record some of my sessions, not all of them. That's why there's not a lot of footage of Maruki or any of the endgame royal content. But yeah, I'd only have to record the first couple of hours of 12 to really sell really sell the review, and with as little work as possible. Let's be honest. Well, what ended up biting me in the ass though was the first time I ended up recording the Zodiac Age footage, I actually had there was actually a brownout, a power flicker, and I guess that must have fucked with my recording, because I checked, I did like 2 or so hours of gameplay, and I checked my footage, and after like a minute or so of recording, the footage was just corrupted. It was unusable, even though I used FLV. So I ended up having to re-record it, which I was none too pleased about, but I couldn't really complain. It was only the first couple of hours of the game. So yeah, that's why I decided to make it a Spoony review. I thought I was actually very pleased with the result, and I also again like to thank Nate for knew nothing about Final Fantasy XII and still was able to provide good feedback on trying to get the Spoony feel, which I think we managed to help capture. I also want to thank Skippa. He doesn't have like social media or anything besides like a Discord, so that's why he doesn't have like a artist link in the description or whatever. But he managed to whip up the Tectonic Experiment thumbnail, which I'm very pleased with. Even if it's only there for a couple of seconds, it's probably one of my favorite parts of the video. It really makes it feel that much more authentic. Alright, so it's about 10 minutes in, and I still haven't explained what I thought of Final Fantasy XII. So I suppose we can just get into it right now. Final Fantasy XII, if I had to give a rating to it, I would probably give it I'd probably give it a 6 out of 10. That doesn't seem that harsh, but this is a game that I think is incredibly like lopsided. It feels it's sort of like Persona 3 in a way, right? Where as I described Persona 3, it's a game with high highs, lowish lows. Final Fantasy XII is a game with high highs and one extremely like abyssal low. I'm sorry. I know some people really like this combat system or like the gambit system, but I just like could not wrap my head around this gameplay like at all. As someone who doesn't really care for the combat, allow me to explain it to the best of my abilities. Basically, the gambit system is this faux MMO combat where you have automated attacks, and you and your party members do commands based on these things called gambits, which are basically like if-then statements, like if like a programmer, right? So they have like a flow chart of things that they are supposed to do in certain situations, all of your party members. So like say if enemy nearby, if there's an enemy nearby, Vaughn will attack. Okay, makes sense. But if you put if HP less than 30%, use potion. So while Vaughn is attacking something, if his health is reduced to less than 30%, he will instead forego an attack and instead use a potion until of course his health is above 30%, then he will continue attacking. That is by far the most simple example I can give of the gambit system. In fact, I think it's the example they give you when they're teaching you it in the game. My problem with the gambit system is it felt like when everything was going according to plan, I wasn't doing anything. And when everything was going wrong, or when I was losing, I didn't understand why. There were a lot of points throughout the game where I would get into a random encounter with maybe 2 enemies, or maybe 3. If you're familiar with Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition, there's this idea baked into the combat of that game called the action economy, right? Where game balance is, oh sorry, I'm fiddling with something. Game balance is very swingy in favor of whoever, or battles rather, are very swingy in favor of whoever has more actions per turn, or aka more party members. So if you go into battle in 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons with against like 2 enemies and 4 party members, even if the 2 enemies are slightly stronger than the 4 party members, the party members have a significantly higher chance of winning. Like, they're just because of the amount of turns they get over these enemies. Doubly so if it's tied, or and vice versa. Like, if there's more enemies than there are party members, it's swingier in the favor of the enemies. And I think this idea is present in 12, because whenever there was more than maybe, because you can only have 3 party members out max at a time, right? So if there was ever 3 or so enemies, it was usually bad news. You usually did not want to get involved with fights that involved too many people. It was always, I found it was always best if you managed to pick fights with 1 enemy at a time, just slowly pick them off. Which, on one hand, you know what, that's almost interesting in a way. Like, it's just kind of an obvious strategy to slowly pick off the weak and then, you know, route enemies, right? It makes sense. The problem is that this isn't like Final Fantasy XII doesn't have random encounters or like a different battle screen. It's all real time. So if enemies happen to roam in the like vicinity where they get aggroed, then you're going to be fighting them. There's really nothing you can do about it besides run. But of course, you can't always run, because you need to fight battles to get strong enough to progress in the game. And also, like I said before, there's no battle screens, so running away just means you're going to get picked apart by enemies slowly until you can find a way to ditch them. So that was one of my issues. But really, like, the big problem was I just didn't really, whenever I lost fights, I didn't really know what I did wrong exactly. It would feel like at some points the gambit system would be working 100% in my favor, and then all of a sudden the battle or like something would change, and then I would be getting stomped. I'd be getting creamed by enemies that I should be on even playing field with. I thought at first that, like, oh, you know, I need to work on my gambits a little more. I need to maybe I need to reconfigure the jobs for the party members. I turned Ash. I turned Ash from a red mage into a black mage, just to have her focus more on magic. I tried to keep every single member of the party in like a class that made sense to them. Like, I made Balthier a machinist. I made Vaughn a Shikari, I think is what they're called. Basically, like, the thief guy. I made him a thief guy. I made Pinello. Did I either turned Pinello into a white mage, then a monk, or into a monk, then a white mage? I don't remember which. I made Fran a ranger, and I made Ash a red battle mage, and then a black mage. Most of these kind of made sense. Ash as a black mage is a little weird, but, you know, they let you pick whatever classes you want for each party member. So if there were like quote unquote bad choices, then maybe they shouldn't have you pick classes at all. I know that the job system, or the Zodiac board or whatever, was added in like a re-release, and it's like a remake thing. whereas the license board was the same for everyone in the original. But I think my point still stands. That I would. It's just. I think a lot of the problems would come from dwindling resources too. I would always find it would usually end up the same for me every single time. I would come back from a shop or like an inn, and everyone would be fully refreshed, and everyone would be able to effectively destroy most encounters, not destroy, but healthily defeat encounters as necessary. I didn't really go out of my way too much to pick fights. I just tried to get from point A to point B and fight things that came in front of got in my way or came towards me. And this would go good for a while. As long as Penelo had MP, or Penelo or Fran, because Rangers can have some cure spells too. As long as Penelo or Fran had MP to spare, and Ash had MP to spend on spells, they would. Oh, I made Bosch and Knight too. By the way, I completely forgot about Bosch. I'm sorry. I'll talk about the characters in a bit. Anyway, as long as I had the resources, I would be fine. But the instant, these resources would never last long. It would always it'd always be maybe like halfway through the trek, and I would be tapped out. Fran would be out of MP, so would Penelo and Ash, and effectively, if they didn't have, if Penelo and Ash didn't have MP, they were pretty much worthless. I gave Ash the Sword of Kings, but that really wasn't like a good idea because since she's a black mage class, she doesn't have the defense. She just doesn't have defense. So her swinging around a sword, she dies in an instant. There's really not. It was a stupid idea. I'm not gonna blame the game for that. I just figured I'd give you all an anecdote to prove that I played the game. I did beat this game, by the way, and I'll explain why soon enough. Yeah, and like when my resources started draining, I would start to lose combats, and that in itself makes sense. But I just the resources would never last. It would always end up happening. No matter what I tried to do, I would try to fiddle with my gambits a little more, try to cover weaknesses. With like use like weaker spells. If enemy weak to this, then use like Thunder instead of just spamming Thundara or whatever. I would try to use special abilities as best I could, but or even healing items in lieu of spells. But the problem I came across fairly early into the game and never really seemed to shake was money troubles. I was always out of money. I usually barely had enough money to spend on armor and maybe some spells for parts of the cast. Like I had to pick and choose every single time we went to a shop. Like, all right, who's getting gear this time? Ash, Penelo, and Bosch had gear last time, so Balthier, Fran, and Vaughn, it's your turn to get some new gear, stuff like that. And I couldn't even deck them out most of the time. It would usually be like, give Balthier a new gun. He's been using the same gun he's had since the beginning of the fucking game. Stuff like that. Now, I think maybe something I could have used, I could have done to help alleviate money problems was do more of the survivors, or the like the bulletin board, like the guild quest to like hunt monsters and stuff. I did not do a lot of those quests. I started cutting my teeth on them a little, like near the endish of the game. Since then, I pretty much ignored them for a lot of the time. I was more interested in the main story. And I think, like, if you need to do the side quests to have a comfortable amount of money in the game, I feel like there's something wrong there. Even if I was selling like special like loot or relics or whatever from random drop enemies, doing like chains to get better loot, I still had this problem. I never had enough money. You know? And I didn't find the guild quests to be enticing that much. Or they just never really grabbed me. There's this one quest at the beginning of like one of the first couple of quests you get to fight this enemy in I'm blanking on the names, but people who've played this game will probably know what I'm talking about. There's this one enemy that only appears in this specific area. Like, okay, makes sense. Now there's a bit of a trick to it though, because the specific area changes between a desert plain and a like an alpine, like I'm trying to think of the word, almost like a grassy, like rainy valley place. Rainy valley. That's a good idea. It's a good term to use. Yeah. So it turns from this desert place into this rainy valley place, and the way or when it changes depends on like times in the game on certain days of the week. So you can only run into this enemy on the rainy valley area of this area. So which means that you're only able to fight this thing on certain days of the week at certain times. I did not like this. I did not understand this. Or rather, by the time I understood it, I was fed up and I was not interested in completing it. So I just went on with the main quest. So maybe if I did more of those, I'd get more money. But it didn't feel worth it to me. Like it wasn't really intriguing because I was effectively playing this game for the story, especially by around the halfway point. I was really just playing this game to see where the plot would take me next. I think the only times when the gameplay felt tolerable or like I was getting kind of into it, because there were points where it was when things were going right and I was winning, but those are times. It's whenever the game gives you a third or a fourth party member, like a guest character. Whenever Larsa showed up and joined your party, it was like a godsend, because Larsa is this little kid who has healing spells. So he sticks back and he's constantly healing your party, like whenever you need it. He'll run out of MP as just like everyone else will, but he ran out of it significantly slower because his MP was amazing, and since I had other healers, I didn't have to. The MP pool was even bigger, and since you recover MP slowly, since you recover MP slowly just by walking around, and there's more people healing, it's the health or the MP is recovered quicker. Like there's more to distribute. Hopefully that made sense. So yeah, like when Larsa or this Redis, I think is his name, he shows up at the way end of the game. They were very helpful and they made the game more bearable. So I mentioned that the only reason, or by around the halfway point, the reason I was playing the game was to was to see the story, and that's 100% true, because when I say high highs, I really do mean it. I think the story, or rather the premise or so, of Final Fantasy XII is really interesting. It's a really cool setting, and the characters of 12 are like excellent. As much as I shit on Vaughn and kind of Penelo in the Spoonie review, I actually didn't really mind Vaughn that much as a character, and I don't think he's useless. I don't think he's a useless character. He's very clearly meant to be like a fish out of water character, to pretty much everything be explained to him, which is very helpful in a setting like Ivalice, where you really want to know everything about this world. So in that way, he's not useless. That said, him and Penelo are definitely my least favorite of the cast. Ash is probably also in the bottom three. I don't think she's boring or anything. I actually like the fact that she is pretty much on a revenge mission for the whole game and doesn't really lose sight of that in a way. I might be blanking on some sort of revelation near the end, but she seems pretty hell-bent on fucking killing Vayne Solidor, and she does. So, and she gets her fucking throne back. So, good for her. But my three favorite characters were Bosch, and Balthier and Fran, obviously. Balthier and Fran are just so wonderful. As soon as, really, like I said in the JRPG video, when I watched Clement's video, and I saw that opening cutscene, or the introductory cutscene for Balthier and Fran, I was like, all right, these guys seem pretty fucking cool, and him talking about the plot a lot got me really interested in playing the game finally. So if it wasn't for Balthier and Fran, I probably wouldn't have played this game. And I ended up really liking them a lot. I wish Balthier's connection to the Cid of the game. He's spoilers, by the way. He's Cid's kid, and he was supposed to be he was an ex-noble who gave up his seat. I think he was actually an ex-judge, which is really interesting. He gave up his seat to become a sky pirate. You don't find this out until maybe about, I want to say, either 2/3 or 3/4 of the way through the game, and you see it. You hear about it through Balthier talking to Ash in and not even like a flashback. He just explains it to her, which I found to be kind of disappointing, kind of a letdown. Because I think it would have been cool to see past, maybe like a flashback with Balthier, kind of really getting into why it is he abdicated his seat as a judge. Regardless, I still liked him a lot. Every single line he said just like oozed charisma. I'm gonna look up his voice actor, because he fucking killed it as Gideon Emery. Yeah, because So I played with the English dub, but Gideon Emery, he killed it as Balthier. There's really no other way about it. I can say he was the highlight. He was the highlight of the game. Him and Fran. I like Fran because first of all, her accent is like ooh, wonderful, and she's a sexy bunny lady. So what's there not to like? I like the chemistry she had with Balthier, and I liked her little story that she gets fairly early-ish into the game. The downside about that, though, is that pretty much once that happens, she doesn't really have much relevance to the main story, which makes sense because she's sort of an outsider But I don't know. I was just always in cutscenes hoping that like Fran or Balthier would pipe up and say something, and Balthier would usually talk, but Fran was kind of quiet, and that kind of bummed me out a bit. As for Bosch I think is a very interesting character. He's kind of your like archetypal knight guy, like a knight character. He's sworn to protect the throne and whatnot, but his relationship to Judge Gabranth is incredibly interesting. It's the classic two brothers walk different paths sort of thing, where they each pretty much want the same thing, but they go about different ways of doing it. I believe, again, it's been almost a year since I've played 12 at this point, so if I'm hazy on the memories, please forgive me. But Gabranth, I believe his like goal was he was trying to change the system from the inside, and Bosch obviously wasn't going to stand for anything like that. Excuse me. Or rather, I don't think he was trying to change he was either trying to change the system from the inside, or he was trying to stick to the winning team in some way, which, it's understandable in some regard. On the other hand, it's also kind of cowardly, which is possibly why he hides behind a helmet most of the time. There might be some sort of symbolism there. He's obviously meant to be a sort of Darth Vader analog. But yeah, their relationship is really cool. It's very interesting. The problem, however, is that Judge Gabranth and Bosch only have about 3 cutscenes together throughout the 40-50 hour runtime. The introduction of Bosch as a party member is the first one. The second one is all the way at the final moments of the game, at the end of the final major dungeon. Gabranth finally meets up with Bosch and the party again. And then a short while later, after he's defeated, you fight him again in the final dungeon. Those, if I recall correctly, are the only 3 times Bosch and Gabranth interact. And I found that to be very disappointing, because those scenes were really good. And I liked how Gabranth turned turned good by the end and helped you to fight Vayne Solidor. I thought that was really interesting, or really, it was a really like cool moment. I also like the end game where Bosch fakes his death and assumes the role of Judge Gabranth to keep his brother's honor intact as protector of Larsa Solidor. Yeah. I thought that was really interesting, and spoilers for Code Geass. Literally, like almost exactly the same thing happens in Code Geass, which I thought was really interesting. I thought that was a curious parallel. But yeah, that was really cool, and the fact that Gabranth and Bosch don't really interact much in the game is kind of indicative of another another major issue I have with the game, and it's that the main party and the main plot almost they feel almost like at a major disconnect between each other. because the whole point of the game is that you, Ash and the rest of her party are going around trying to first of all sorry, reclaim her birthright, or reclaim her spot on the throne, improve her birthright, and overthrow the Emperor Solidor, Vayne Solidor. And she is willing to do like anything to pretty much get this done. She almost she's almost willing to side with like ancient gods or whatever to do this. And because of this, you're sent from all sorts of different places, sent to all sorts of different places to obtain items to improve your birthright or get some sort of weapon that can only defeat X character or whatever. You know, just like you're pretty much just trying to like build up your clout throughout the game. So you're almost always away from the main goings on, the main like political intrigue of the Empire. You're never near the Empire, except for very long rather. And because of this, the game has to have like meanwhile cutscenes to sort of explain to the viewer or the player what exactly is going on while Ash and co are collecting like the Sword of Kings or whatever. And I don't know, I felt kind of let down about that. From what I understood, like Final Fantasy XII was like touted as this game with a lot of like interesting political intrigue. And it's sort of like Game of Thrones, I guess. Although I've never seen Game of Thrones very much. It just you know, kind of like a grounded like low fantasy setting. As low fantasy as flying airships can get, you know what I mean. But a lot of the politics of the game are almost disconnected from the main cast, and the main cast themselves, they become, I mean, I guess they become friends, but it doesn't really feel like there's much of a rapport between them as I feel like maybe could have been, as there maybe could have been. Maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm forgetting some stuff. They obviously talk to each other, but I don't know. That's pretty much what I thought of the story. It felt a little too disconnected. I liked a lot of what it was doing, but a lot of the time I wish things were connected a little better. And I think there's a lot of missed opportunities in the plot, you know. But yeah. I guess those are my thoughts on Final Fantasy XII. I've been going for 40 minutes. That I know, like, people always say this whenever they make like a long like podcast video, but like I do not remember talking for this long. It's all those tea breaks, they added up. So yeah, if you're a fan of Final Fantasy XII, I totally get it. I totally understand why people would like this game, and I almost like it. There's just a lot of stuff holding it back for me, and I don't think I would ever... I say this now, but I don't think I would ever replay it. But I swear that there's like a voice in the back of my head that's saying like, oh, but you didn't... Maybe you missed something. You missed something about the license board or the Gambit system that made it all click. There were so many points throughout Final Fantasy XII. I was just waiting for it to click. I was waiting for everything to sort of come together. And whenever I thought that it had, the game would remind me that no, it hasn't. You don't understand it quite yet. And I guess I never really did understand it. I got all the way to the end of the game and without really getting it. Somehow. Almost didn't. The last fight was rough. So yeah. Final Fantasy XII, the Zodiac Age. Is it a good game? Do I recommend it? I really think that most people would probably be better off just watching like a Let's Play or something. Or even watching that Clement video, which I came back to after I beat the game, by the way. And I thought it was a well done video. So if anything I said in this, well, I guess I kind of spoiled the game, so I guess I can't say like if anything in this doesn't you don't mind, go out play it, but I don't know. I just feel very conflicted about 12, I guess. Because it's the most recent example of a game that I've really wanted to like, and just couldn't really grasp it.
Never thought I'd see him growing up.
All right, I guess that's it. Thank you all for watching or listening. I guess there'll probably just be like unedited random footage over this video if I even bother to do that. Again, I'd like to thank you all for watching the JRPG video, sharing it around, doing whatever. I really appreciate that. I've been doing this thing for 3 years now, a little over 3 years now, and we finally broke 1,000 subscribers. It doesn't seem like a lot, and I guess over the course of 3 years, it kind of really isn't. But it's cool to think that about 1,000 people or whatever looked at one of my videos, be it the American Dad video or the Pokemon videos or whatever, and was like, I like this. I want to see more from this guy, and hit subscribe. It means a lot. So thank you. I hope it doesn't take as long to make the next video. It shouldn't. I have some ideas brewing in my head. I think I'm just gonna be taking whatever's left of the month off, and just playing some games, for fun. Yeah, but once the new year starts, gonna get working on some videos. I already have plenty of ideas for new videos, game videos, obviously. Some AMVs too, if you're into that. But again, those don't impede main channel videos as much as some people might think, if they think that at all. Alright, I'm rambling now. Thanks again.